All right, so first of all, I want to thank you, Mr. President, Superintendent, members of the board, for your patience and inviting me back. And I'm accompanied this evening by my stepmom, Sherry, and it's her job to make sure that I get where I'm supposed to go. And I do want to give Bill a little bit better introduction because he certainly deserves a little bit better introduction. Most of you are probably aware of the DeRolf lawsuits from what is now a long time ago, back in the 1990s. Well, Bill Phillips is the Bill Phillips that made those lawsuits happen. So when I introduce Bill Phillips, especially in a crowd of people who don't know him, I always add Bill Phillips, comma, the legend. Because to those of us in public education, he is, and we're very honored to have him as the head and the director, the face of these two campaigns I'm going to talk to you about this evening. So I am a member of the Ohio Coalition for Equity and Adequacy of School Funding Steering Committee. I am a former member of the Kansas City School District Board of Education. If I come back in a year, hopefully it'll take the word former off. And this conversation started actually with member Messer, who stopped by our booth at the Capitol Conference. We had quite a conversation about this, and we started talking about it. And I'm here and happy to be here. And if I can figure all this out, we're just going to go ahead and go. So there's the cover page. Okay, I want to posit two things with you. The first is the Ohio Constitution. This is Article 6, Section 2, the part that talks about school funds. The General Assembly shall make such provisions by taxation or otherwise as, with the income arising from the school trust fund, will secure a thorough and efficient system of common schools throughout the state. That's DeRolf. But no religious or other sect or sects shall ever have any exclusive right to or control of any part of the school funds of this state. That is the Ohio Constitution. Hold the thought. The second thing I want to posit with you is that we're all in the middle of a fight. And for public education, I don't think I have to tell you, this is the fight of our lives. I have never seen it the way it is today in the state of Ohio. But in order to win the fight, you have to show up for the fight. And that's what I'm here to ask you to do tonight. I'm here to recruit you for at least this part of the fight. So let's look at Amherst's loss to Ed Choice vouchers. Because there are a lot of things out there. I'd like to focus tonight basically on Ed Choice vouchers. So in fiscal year 2021, which is the first year of Ed Choice voucher expansion, 37 of your students took the vouchers and left your district. In fiscal year 22, it was up to 50. Fiscal year 23, it was 57. In fiscal year 24, it's 235. So what does that mean to you? There it is. $1,295,320 of your taxpayer money walked out of this district to voucher private schools, probably religious, probably not accredited, and probably not doing very well for your students. Okay, now what the state likes to tell people about these vouchers is that, well, it's just a way to get these poor kids from impoverished areas out of failing public schools. And we're not failing schools, but that's what they say. But in Ohio, we have found that that is not necessarily what reality is. So who is actually getting these vouchers? Well, in Fiscal year 2023, you had 40 students who were low income qualified that got them, and 17 who were not low income qualified. Now you'll notice there was a big jump in fiscal year 24, both in the last slide and this slide, and that's because of the expansion that we saw that came from the legislature. But look what also happened. Now 199 who are not low income students versus 24 who are. So when they tell you that this is about low income kids who need to be rescued from these failing schools, you can point out that 84.7% of the vouchers in this district went to students who are not low income. Let's go to the other side. These are the slides that I'm lifting these from what Steve Dyer showed at the Capitol Conference. I think you've seen these actually. His slides are much prettier than mine, and he does a really good job. So that's it. Okay, so this is historically what has happened since 1996. Ohio has a number of different vouchers. I think there are 5 types. And most of them are very small and very targeted. Again, it's the ed choice expansion that is the problem. But look at what has happened between 1996 and 2025. That curve has just risen to over $1 billion. So it started out very, very tiny, basically in the Cleveland School District, and it is now over $1 billion. This year, in this next budget, they're talking about $2 billion. So that's the historic. This is what is happening. Ohio's K-12 state revenue going to public schools. As steep as the curve is up, the funding from the state going to K-12 public school districts is going down. It is only 79.3% of what it was 20 years ago. Oops. Oh, there we go. So Ohio's public school children are 84% of all Ohio school children. Ohio's public school children receive only 79.4% though of all K-12 spending. So in Ohio, we're starting to tip the scales in the wrong direction. This is 1997 to 2024 private school enrollment versus state voucher investment. And just look at the difference in those red lines especially. Voucher school students perform worse than our students. You all know that. Your public needs to know that. The other myth that's out there is that this is rescuing non-white students. Well, except that it's not. Most of the vouchers in the ed choice expansion in Ohio, are going to white students. And on the expansion, you see that number is actually 81.6%. This is just school districts that have increased segregation. Actually, I'm done with these slides now. Switching back. Okay. So, here's when we look at the fight. We look at what's happening in Columbus now. Ed choice vouchers are going to continue to expand. You've seen the terrific expansion. And this year, when we start getting into the budget, they're already talking about basically doubling what is already going through the roof. I don't think it's any secret to anybody in here that our former Senate President, now Speaker of the House, is, his whole mission for being a legislator in Ohio is to privatize the schools. And he doesn't hide it. He went to the American Legislative Exchange Committee conference and talked about it, that was his mission. And in the in the press, he has made a lot of statements to that effect. There is no counterbalance to stop him in the Senate anymore. When he was the Senate president, we used to have a House of Representatives that wasn't quite of that mind. There was a balance there. But that balance is gone this year. So vouchers are going to be increased, and we all know that they are not going to fund the fair school funding plan to the extent that they should. The money comes from the same pot. So the money that's going to the voucher kids first is money that is not coming to public school districts. That's another myth. The state likes to say, well, there's a different pot of money, but there's not really. It is all the same line item, but the vouchers get paid first. So the fight is, what do you do about this? Well, you sue the state, because you have the Ohio Constitution to stand on, which is very clear about this. And you have a good case. And that's what we did. When we formed this Council of Governments, it was actually during COVID. You know how some people learned how to bake sourdough bread during COVID? Well, Bill and I and a few others, we organized this Council of Governments to sue the state over COVID. And it has come together quite nicely. And it's all under the umbrella of the Ohio Coalition for Equity and Adequacy. The same group, same structure that did the DeRolf cases. But the campaign is called Vouchers Hurt Ohio. And the campaign has two sides. It has the legal side, and it has the public engagement side. The legal side is the side that is responsible for suing the state of Ohio. And I'm going to talk about where that suit is in a second. The public engagement side is run by Dennis Willard, who is a professional in communications. And we are going to change the culture in the state of Ohio. And it's not as hard as you might think. Because when people hear this, they're like, say what? Our taxes are doing what? We've been to the fairs all over the state. People don't like this. The problem is they don't necessarily know about it. It's not like we have good news media that actually covers this. So people don't really know how bad this situation is. So it is our job on the public engagement side of this to tell people so that when it gets to the Ohio Supreme Court in a few years, the public will be sold on getting rid of Ed Choice vouchers. It is the legal side that is responsible for getting it through the courts. Now, next month, the 28th, starts the final pretrial hearing before Judge Page in Franklin County. Once that is finished and she rules on the pretrial motions, the case can be scheduled for trial in Franklin County. It was actually supposed to happen last November, but she wasn't ready, so you do what the judge says. We have won every substantive pretrial motion so far. So we are somewhat encouraged. You never know till it's over, but if you score them, we're winning. There's only one that we lost, and it was really esoteric and didn't really make any difference. it is the coalition, and the Columbus City Schools is the lead plaintiff. The second plaintiff is Cleveland Heights University Heights, and there are some individuals as well, and the trial was supposed to be in November. It's not. It will be sometime the third quarter or the fourth quarter of this year, once those are ruled on. It'll then get appealed. Whoever loses will appeal, and it will eventually make its way to the Ohio Supreme Court. Now, what's nice about this case is that, unlike DeRolf, where the Supreme Court ordered the state legislature to do something to fix, that the legislature just, of course, ignored, this case just calls for ed choice vouchers to be declared unconstitutional, which shouldn't be very difficult to do, because they are. You saw the Constitution. And then once that happens, then the state would be ordered by the court just to stop. There's no going back and fixing. There'd be no delays. It'd be just the vouchers would end. So let me go to the next slide. Okay, there are 5 counts. Just basically going to go through them. Count 1 is a declaratory judgment, creation of one or more systems of uncommon schools in violation of the Ohio Constitution, which you saw. Count 2 is for declaratory judgment, failure to secure a thorough and efficient system of common schools in violation of the Ohio Constitution. Count 3 is segregation, and that's the racial component, in violation of the thorough and efficient system of common schools as provided in Article 6, Section 2. Count 4 is diversion of funding in violation of the no religious or other sect shall ever have exclusive right in the Constitution. And you'll notice this is a different section. This is the 5th count, is the all power is inherent in people clause. But those are the 5 counts. I can provide the entire complaint to you, should you like to have it. And I'd like to just open it up for questions now, because I know that when we talk about this, unless there's something I forgot, Bill.
Well, if I could interject here for just a moment, as Eric indicated, I was the executive director of the coalition when the DeRolf case was going through the courts and decided. I had just left the State Department of Education as Assistant Superintendent of Public Instruction, and I was my jobs was to be the liaison between the Department of Education and the General Assembly. And after 16 years with the department, I could see that the legislature wasn't going to do anything substantive with regard to the decrepit school facilities and the funding system. So I dropped out of the State Department of Education and started working with the coalition. Now, we were very successful in the DeRolf case. In fact, there are 1,200 new school buildings across the state that wouldn't have been here if it had not been for the Supreme Court ruling that the system is unconstitutional. Now, when Eric got in touch with me, Eric Resnick got in touch with me, and he's the one person that kind of started this whole litigation effort. But he got in touch with me. The coalition was in existence. It was the Council of Governments, that was formed in 1991. And we decided, that is, the steering committee of the coalition decided to pursue this litigation. We have the steering committee now, as it's kind of been reconstituted, is comprised of 29 members. They're all either superintendents, treasurers, board members, or former board members. but all of them have a record in being in public education. So right now, we started out with just the 3 or 4 districts. Right now, since the fiscal year 21, we have gone from just a few districts to 300 districts. That is, 300 districts have contributed to this litigation effort since fiscal year 21. Some of them 5 years, some of them 4 years, some of them 3 years, some of them 2 years. And then we have this year in fiscal year 25, we have 24 or 25 new districts. And so the 300 districts have so far contributed to this effort, and we're growing every day. We've got we've got rural districts, suburban districts, urban districts. In fact, all of the urban districts except Cleveland are involved. And in terms of pupil population, we have more than half. Those districts in the coalition represent more than half of the pupil population because we have these larger districts in. Recently, we've gotten some suburban districts in, like Upper Arlington, in Columbus area. We've got Wyoming and Hamilton County and Butler County. We just recently got the Lakota School District in. So this is a kind of we have an all-star steering committee. We have districts that are 300 districts, and they're joining, on a regular basis. They're rural districts in character, urban, small town, suburban, joint vocational school districts, education service centers. So this is just a very legitimate operation, in some respects, a prestigious operation, and we fully expect that we're going to demonstrate to the court that we, in fact, that the vouchers, the Ed Choice voucher program is unconstitutional. There are 5 voucher programs in Ohio. We're only challenging the Ed Choice vouchers. The John Peterson Scholarship was not involved. The Autism Scholarship, the Cleveland Scholarship, those voucher programs are not involved in this. So, and I might say also, well, I will say also that, you would have thought, or I would have thought, that once they got the universal voucher program in place, that they'd quit, that no more expansion. Well, now the president or the Speaker of the House wants to get the facility money from the state to increase the facilities, expand facilities for private schools, and thus increase the demand for vouchers. There's a bill going through the legislature now that they call the education savings accounts, and they're wanting to get these education savings accounts to funnel money directly to parents, who then can use their money to pay the tuition of those non-chartered, non-tax schools, those private schools that have absolutely no regulations from the state of Ohio. And of course, the chartered non-public schools are, they're somewhat regulated, but obviously not to the extent that the public system is. The private schools are not audited. Every penny that goes to a district is audited, as you well know. So the bottom line of all of this is that, as Eric said before, we're kind of in a fight for the public school system, the public common school system, the one that was authorized by the General Assembly. So I'd be happy to answer questions, or just depending on what you're interested in.
as I started out by saying, that we are here to recruit you, and we are hoping that by the time this litigation gets going full steam, that we have at least 80% of school districts in the state of Ohio on board, so that we can walk into the court and say, you know, this is a big group. This represents a lot of people. This is solidarity. We know that the Ohio Supreme Court is now a very political entity, because they openly admit that now too. This is how you win in an openly political entity, is you walk in with strength. And the other thing I want to say is that this is good for your community, because your local taxpayers are going to be on the hook. Every penny that you need that you don't get from the state of Ohio, you're going to have to go back to your local tax base, and you're going to have to ask for it. While the state is diverting that money to these private schools. And at some point, your voters are going to figure that out, and they're going to say, well, what did you do to stop this? This is what you do to stop this. You join this campaign, and we are here to recruit you and to answer your questions. And by the way, Bill gives me far more credit for this project than I deserve. I ran my mouth, which attracted some attention, but Bill is the driving force behind this, and there are a lot of people on the steering committee that are extremely talented and knew what to do when that ball landed in their court. And that's why we're here, and that's why we've had the success that we have had so far. So at that, I'd like to just hear your questions and make sure that between tonight and what I do afterwards in terms of sending you stuff, that you have everything that you need to come back and say, yes, Amherst wants to join.
Questions for the presentation? Amanda, do you have anything that you would like to add or anything you'd like to say?
Just thank you for making me sure for coming out, and thank you for everybody agreeing to have them out, and hopefully our district community was able to tune in and hear the presentation, or able to come back and tune in later on YouTube. So
This is going to be on YouTube. Oh, cool.
on our official channel, yes. So people can understand, what's going on and how it affects your tax, hard-earned tax dollars. So that's all I can say.
At some point, we don't really have a choice. This is not a legislature that is lobbyable anymore, and they've proven that over and over again. If you're going to fight, there's only one avenue. This is it.
Your question, Mr. Zappa?
I do. I'm confused on the ed choice. I understand what it is. The tax dollars in this district go wherever the student goes, correct?
Yes and no. I would say that that's basically true. Would you agree with that, Bill? Would you agree with that, Treasurer?
The funding follows the
It follows
student.
the student,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so
Almost 100% now, right?
So what this is essentially is that public dollars for public schools are being diverted to students going to private schools. So it's
Correct.
taking money away from the state's general fund that they would otherwise hopefully give to public education.
and those students can go anywhere.
Well, you have, I forgot to put the slide up there, but in Lorain County, you have 16 schools that will take vouchers today. 16 in Lorain County.
Okay,
So,
well,
yes.
where I was going with that was there's a school in Lorraine County that, parochial school, and it was stated in the bulletin there that if you live in a certain city, you can come here for free. Okay, so what, I guess there's where I'm confused is, so from a choice perspective, can you go to that school outside of that city
I
through
think,
Ed Choice?
oh, yeah.
So where's it free and not
You can
free?
take, if you qualify for an Ed Choice voucher, and almost everybody now qualifies for it. It's very rare to find somebody that's not gonna qualify for an Ed Choice voucher. That's the problem. But you can take that Ed Choice voucher to any school that will accept them. So that, yes, that is the case. Any school. It could be anywhere. It doesn't have to be local.
So when they say free, the school says free, is there like an equalizer where we'll take this money, but we need more that you have to pay, or they're satisfied with whatever they get?
Well, different schools operate differently. For example, the Catholic diocese schools have funding other than the vouchers, but they take the vouchers, and the vouchers go into their operating funds, and it becomes like a slush fund for them. But they have other funding mechanisms as well, endowments and donors and stuff like that. Other private schools that are more independent would have their own business model.
So do all of the Catholic schools in Ohio or in Northeast Ohio accept the voucher?
No, but there are very few that don't. I know of a couple that don't, but it is very few. Most
But the ones in Lorain County and Cuyahoga County probably do.
yes.
I think that might help answer your question.
And Eric, when they increased the amount of money going to vouchers, which you saw the experience of how many students in Amherst now are taking vouchers somewhere, there was nothing stopping those school districts from raising their tuition in response, correct?
Correct. And in fact, that is a point that has come out in the depositions, that these schools that take the vouchers, they're not, they're just raising their tuition. So they have this extra voucher money, so that allows them to just raise their price because they can with the vouchers. It's easier. It's not, if the vouchers went away, they wouldn't necessarily go away. They just would have to lower their prices back down. And that was one of the interesting things that's come out in the deposition so far.
And would it be a fair statement to say that some of those parochial schools or Catholic schools are in the process, not up front, but recruiting some of those students, not necessarily from an academic standpoint, but from a competition standpoint?
Yes,
That's right.
without a doubt.
Correct. So that's something I think that as we think about this, we need to keep that in mind, that all of the best athletes are going to be a target, in my opinion, strictly my opinion, for a target for them to recruit them, because they will take the amount of money that voucher is, and just like he said, the athletics are so strong, there's a donor who will pay the difference or has a fund set up that will accommodate any additional money that is needed to attend that institution.
So you're saying that they go to Catholic school and let's just say it's $5,000. I know it's more than that. If it's $5,000 to go to a Catholic school, if they decide to take the voucher there, the school would get the voucher, but they would still have to possibly pay the money to go to the Catholic school.
Well, they would have to pay that, but if they're being recruited not on academics, and even if they're being recruited on academics, there's probably a fund that would help support that. Think about it. Think about what we heard at the board retreat last year. That presenter worked for a private institution. He flat out told us that the key to their success was recruitment.
Yeah.
And that they would come up with the means of the funds to get the people they would want. And because we had a discussion around that in regards to sports. So I just think that we all need to keep in mind that it's not only going to hurt the educational component, but it's also going to hurt the athletic component, the extracurricular component of schools. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands that. And in some cases, it may be, the parent may think that, gee, if X school doesn't have a good program in soccer, but a school does, then why are we not going to send them where they think that they're going to get a better education, not necessarily, but a better opportunity to play soccer, because the benefits of getting accepted to play soccer at a different school, because sometimes we know that the recruiting of those athletes are better than they are at public school. So there's a lot for you to think about in that. And I know we've talked about some of that stuff as a board, but I just think it's important that we keep that in mind.
On the academic side, is there anything at the state level in place to start monitoring or grading?
No.
No.
No. In fact, that's that's the joke around the state of Ohio.
Well, that's what the people
Is it
know.
these non-public schools are like the Wild West, literally. And in fact, Ohio is known for being the Wild West of non-public schools. They do whatever they want. They are not held to any real standard at all, which is one of the reasons why they don't perform as well as we do.
And also, real quick, as everyone knows, we transport students, not to our school district, at our cost, which is another issue that I think we've talked to our legislators about. Like, again, if you're going to give them funding, then give them funding for transportation too, but get it off of our books, so we're not paying for that, right? We're the only state in the country that has public school districts transport on our dime for private schools.
And it's not just paying for it. You have to meet their schedule before you meet your own.
Yep.
That was one of the issues that we wrestled with in Canton a couple years ago when we redid our transportation, was our non-public said, no, we want your transportation here at this time, and we, the public school district, the owner of the buses, have to schedule our transportation around them. That's what the state law is in Ohio. Ohio is crazy. And it's because, our legislature,
It's villainizing public education.
and doing it because they don't even hide it anymore. They want public school districts to go away. They don't hide that anymore. And once again, the cost to join the campaign is $2 per student per year. That's it. You've lost over $1.2 million this year already. $2 per student. That's it. And when your public comes to you and says, well, how can you justify this? Talk about what's coming if these vouchers continue to grow.
We've been talking about it in terms of the new biennial bill for 26-27 and what's happening, the potential loss over 2 years of 1.3 million, and the state share of our total revenue is shrinking. It was 41.4 whatever. It's down below 40. And by the end of the biennial budget, if the House bill version comes to fruition, it would be under 30%. So we just keep losing.
As does almost every district in Ohio. So that means that the state really wants everybody to go back to pre-DeRolf, where it was all property tax. Eventually, you're going to look at a building like this and say, we can't afford to keep the lights on here unless we go back to the public for more millage. And that's terrible. But that's where we are.
Any other questions? So just to put it in perspective, the cost if we choose to join this would be under $110,000.
It's a bargain.
Is that correct, Madam Treasurer?
Well, $2 per student per year, and we have 3,700 students.
So it'd be under $110,000. So rounded to about $110,000.
No,
No,
Under 8,000.
Under 8,000.
Under 8,000.
Under 8,000.
Yeah, under 8,000. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Which is under 110.
Thank you.
I'm like, wait a minute
Right?
now.
I never said I was a mathematician.
I was just asking to go
That's great, Walker.
And there's also a resolution the board would do along with that.
And I can send you that. I can send that to you very easily. That is actually on the website. There's one more thing that I want to invite you to. That is April 4th in Columbus, the Network for Public Education, that's Diane Ravage's group, is having their national conference in Columbus, Ohio, in part because of the work that Columbus was chosen because of the work that we are doing suing the state. Diane Ravage will be there. I think I heard that Tim Waltz is going to give the keynote address. Our project has 2 sessions, and I will send you the link to that as well. It'd be great to have a bunch of people down there from Amherst. So you have my email address, you have my phone. Anything that happens, let me know. Let's continue the conversation and get it done. And again, I thank you for the invitation to come to Amherst and your patience. And I'm sure Bill joins me in that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.